Hi, and welcome to the Overtime Leader podcast. I'm your host, Gillian Davis, and I'm the founder of Overtime Leader, where we work with clients to help them build the capabilities, confidence, and clarity on how to scale, grow, or change their business. Typically, in these podcasts, I interview a guest and we have a great conversation about what they're learning through their leadership journey. I thought, as it's the end of the year, and I often get asked a lot of questions about what I'm seeing and hearing in our work, that I would share some of the insights I've gained throughout the year and what you can do to set your 2025 up for success as a leader. So the first question is, what was the most common brief in 2024? The most common brief was this: an executive team who has come to the realization that they need to refactor the organization. They need to change, they need to grow, they need to drive pace to increase their market share or stay competitive. They've had this aha moment, and then they turn to their senior management team and go, let's go. And the senior management team are not making decisions. They're really slow to act. They're not really even collaborating at all. I've heard the word victim mode quite often. And basically an executive team just feeling like they need to re-energize their senior management team so that they can really create that catalyst in the organization for change. Because if your senior management team are feeling low morale, then we can expect the rest of the team just gets that version. So how do we engage, motivate, reignite the senior management team so that they can help the executive team really drive change and create high performance across the business? So why do I think that brief is common? I think it's actually a response of the past few years. When we went through the pandemic, executive team leaders, CEOs, founders, they jumped in to solve. They went into crisis leadership, which was exactly what we needed from them. However, as the market has stabilized, as we've gone through those restructures and business is starting to go back to normal, well, actually, those leaders need to learn how to step out of crisis mode and step into visionary mode, which is what we need next. So when that transition's not done with consideration, basically what's happening is you have executive teams who have been rolled up their sleeves, got stuck in, fixed a lot of problems, became those kind of decision makers, act with intent. And then all of a sudden they're turning around as their hand is still in with their sleeves up and going, how come you're not fixing this stuff? So we just need to make that adjustment, and executive team leaders need to recognize that they need to step out a little bit, create the constraints for that senior management team and anyone else really to get involved, to come up with solutions, to innovate. But if they are constantly going to get stuck in, if they're going to constantly be the first responder to every problem that shows up in the organization, then they are going to create the conditions where they are always involved. And so what we need from executive team leaders is to step out, focus on vision, focus on strategy, create the organizational structure that allows for people to do the work within the right area, but actually hold back a little bit so that senior leaders can learn to find that muscle again, and make that adjustment. So I think that's what the brief was, a direct response to the external conditions we've all seen across the past few years, led by the pandemic, moving into crisis, and now that icky shift where we need to actually step out in order to lead. What were the trends that I saw across different industries? So I actually had to write down all the industries that we work across because it is quite a wide array, from underwater robotics to beauty, to supply chain, to procurement, media agencies, AI consultancies, warehouse robotics, gaming, and I always forget pharma, and even banking. What I think you have to remember when doing this kind of playback is the insights I'm getting are not about some specific industry or a specific department or discipline, which I could do. These are very high-level generic across all of the industries, across all of the types of roles that we work across, from CTOs, CMOs, CROs, CEOs, founders. So we have a really wide breadth. And the trends that I saw across industries were, one, kind of refactoring the business model. So a realization that, the external market conditions Someone in January labeled this omni crisis, which it is. Omni crisis plus AI. So significant external forces that are not in our control have to define how we do business now. So there was that kind of first moment in the start of this year where realization that, okay, we can't wait for things to go back to normal. We can't wait for things to change. Business has to continue. And if we don't, we are going to lose market share and we're going to lose our competitive edge. So point 2 was then refactoring the business so that it could thrive in this omni-crisis technologically disruptive market. And then 3, so 2 was all about, what's the business model we need to set up for success? And then the other trend I saw was kind of this boldness around who we're going to be, who we need to come with us, and like not being apologetic about where we're going to go. So that was really exciting. I think it's teeing up for a really great 2025. But those would be the 3 trends that I saw in 2024. And how did we help our clients overcome this? Well, some of the solutions we did were, for one, navigating external factors. Obviously, we can't control what's going on in the world, but what we have done is a lot of helping leaders understand, or teams, what is in their zone of influence and what is in their zone of control. And how do they create organizations? How do they set up their organizations so that they can adapt to unpredictable markets and just a very unpredictable world? So how do they create more cross-functional alignment, for example, so that if there's an external factor that shifts a supply chain route, for example, how can they be quicker to adapt? How can they build those internal relationships when it doesn't matter, so that when it does matter, they can move quickly into high performance? The other thing that we did around refactoring the business is, in 2022, 2023, there was a lot of restructuring across the industries that we sit across. They were mostly driven by cost savings. This year, it was mostly driven around reshaping the business to be more competitive, or reshaping the business to be set up, so that in a more strategic way. So we worked a lot with leadership teams on navigating how they do those more strategic shifts in organization. Comms, how do you make sure that you can do the right comms? Because there is a company on the other side of this uncomfortable period. How do you make sure you balance that, bring people with you? Because, you've got to keep going on the other side. So I'd say those were 2 of our biggest works, org strategy, org design around alignment, and 2, how do you navigate that restructure, but still keep motivation and engagement on the other side of a restructure? What were our favorite aha moments? I think for me, realizing that they are the change, like seeing in my clients that, yes, if we need to change your business, you need to change yourself. And whenever someone we're working with gets that, it's the unlock to doing great work, because if they stay the same, the business will stay the same. It sounds really obvious, but it is something that, we have to work through and recognize that our comfort zones of how we lead might not serve us anymore. And the business that we want to grow and we want to become actually needs a different type of leadership style. And we have to be the ones that lead that discomfort by moving out of our comfort zone and behaving differently. And I think another moment was a quote used by a CEO said, this year we need to change our people or change our people. And it was clear, it was crisp, everyone knew what they meant. And again, it's like that bold, brave impetus to change and enabling everyone to come with you to do that. How can a leader best start 2025? Well, I think 1, please reflect on 2024 and really think about, it's been a big year, I think, for most of us. Go through the calendar. I just did this a few weeks ago, week by week, to remind myself what happened this year. And it's shocking in a good way, how much we can fit in and how much we grow as a leader in just 12 months. But I think, so take stock of what's happened. I think be, real with yourself on where did you stretch? What are you proud of doing? But also, where do you need to go next? And obviously, I don't mean to another company, but in your leadership style with your team, like what are the things you're not doing that you need to do more of? And what does it look like to hold you accountable to that? think myself included, it is very hard to hold ourselves accountable. But if we want to go through that growth, we want to create, that opportunity, we've got to do better. And it is so frustrating when I have an executive team come to us saying we want more accountability or we want high performance. And, really the answers are kind of basic, like drive accountability, give feedback, be a great communicator. And when they're not doing those things, it's impossible to get anyone else to do those things. So think about the kind of business you want to run, and are you running it as a role model? And what could you do more of to get yourself there? What external factors should leaders be mindful of in 2025? Well, obviously, external factors are always going to influence our leadership, our businesses. I think we have to be mindful not to spend too much time or headspace in our zone of concern. So meaning nothing we do, nothing we think, nothing we can influence will change what's going on in the external market factors. So I think it's about zooming in on what is in my control. And that goes back to, how do I create better cross-functional alignment in a business? How do I create engagement across my company? How do I create change, behavior change? All these things are in your control, and you just want to make sure that you spend the majority of your time in that zone, thinking about where do you have influence? And so, next phase is, who do I need to speak to? What kind of debates am I willing to have? Are fights that I'm going to fight that serve my vision and goals? I think this is something that I want to make sure every leader goes into 2025 with, is make sure that you have a clear plan of action. Like, what's the vision? What's the strategy? And then what are the 3 levers that you are driving your company towards? This should inform decision-making, resourcing, prioritization. Once you have that, then look at the zone of influence and go, which fights are going to serve that? Which fights do I need to drop? Because you can't be everywhere. You can't do all the things. So just being really focused with your time, energy, and zoning in on that control state, fighting for what influences the right things. And then in concern, just let it go. Let it go. Because it is taxing, it is energy draining, and we need that energy on better stuff. What story landed best? So the story that I have retold the most this year and got the most oh my God, yes, was a personal story that I shared with my brother. So my brother is the equipment manager for Canada's women's ice hockey team. And I think it was the holidays last year. I was home. We were talking about our work. And he was like, if you had a magic wand, what would you change? And I was like, if I had a magic wand, I would get all of the people I work with and every leader out there to give more feedback, constructive and positive, because that is honestly the unlock for a lot of the things that they ask for. And this year, we actually did a lot of work around creating high performance cultures. So how do you get folks to raise the game? How do you get leaders to hold people accountable? And feedback is a core component. So I shared this story a lot. And the story goes, basically, I share this magic wand. I want everyone to go give feedback. And my brother goes, that's interesting, because how it works in hockey is, hockey is a very fast-paced sport. You've got players on the ice 60, 90 seconds at a time. They come back onto the bench and they do that rotation. And my brother was sharing, as soon as a player gets off the ice and they get on the bench, the coach beelines to them and gives them feedback. They let them know immediately, hey, that thing you did over there did not have the intended effect. Stop doing it. Or that thing you did over there was phenomenal. Keep doing it. And, he was like, because it makes sense. Because if the coach lets the player go back onto the ice and repeat that negative behavior, or the behavior that's not landing, well, it not only makes the player look foolish, it frustrates the rest of the team and ultimately can cost them the game. And if someone's doing something great, you'd want to let them know so they keep repeating it. And he was like, I wonder why that's different in the workplace. So I'll let that sit for a little bit, because it's not that different. And I think most sports analogies as it relates to work can sometimes be a bit of a stretch. But in this case, I think this one is like for like. Why wouldn't we be a coach on the bench when we see a behavior that is not landing in the way it was intended, and we don't let them know that it's having that unintended result? then not only do we make them look foolish because they will repeat it, it is very frustrating for the team that's working with that person. And ultimately, it can lose you whatever your version of winning a game. On the flip side, if someone is doing something great, why wouldn't we let them know that that specific behavior or specific action is landing, it's helpful, we'd want to see more of it. So why wouldn't we do that? So that story landed best. I have a feeling I'll be continuing to tell this story into 2025, maybe 2026. But I really want you to think about how can you be more coach on the bench next year? Because it is going to significantly improve your leadership and overall team performance. What themes am I seeing for 2025? So I am biased, but it is the nature of our work. I am already seeing an investment in leadership capabilities in a way that I have not seen in the past 7+ years of doing this. It's an investment in doing it tailored to the organization and making sure that if we're going to invest in leadership capabilities, then we are going to make sure that it is connected to our strategy and tied to who we are as a business. And it's my favorite kind of work, so I'm not complaining. But I love to see a real considered investment in leadership development. So not going to send you off to one thing, or we'll get an external partner to do some training. And then, no one's held accountable to making any change. But actually, we are all going on leadership development programs. We are investing in it. So it feels, it looks, it feels, it sounds like our company. And it's the first time ever that I am really getting CEO engagement. They're going on the program. They're making sure they know what models are being presented. They're making sure that they can get their leadership team to hold people accountable, to role model. And I think that's when you get real significant change, is when everyone's doing it. So that's a big theme. The other theme I'm seeing is around change management. So some big aha moments at the end of this year were, whoa, we are leading change. And what that means is you would need to think like a brand. You need to think of a brand within a brand. What is the behavior change you want to see in people? How do you communicate that? How do you inspire it? So we need to move from the crisis leadership, getting involved, stuck in, rolling up our sleeves. We actually need to roll down the sleeves a little bit and really focus on where are we going next? What's the vision? What's the strategy? How does that connect to what we're doing? Like, make people give a shit about the work that you're asking of them, why this change is benefiting them, why it's exciting, what do they get from it? And I think across all of this, we're starting to really feel the next generation coming into the workplace. And a lot of my millennial Gen X clients are really struggling with speaking or engaging with the upcoming generation. And again, a reflection for 2024, 2025 is, does my communication style land with my youngest or most recent hire? Probably not. There isn't we don't have to completely rework ourselves. You are not going to be, it's not going to look authentic if you try to speak like a Gen Z. But what could you do to adapt? How do you bring them in instead of standing at the top and telling them we're going here? What does it look like to bring them in? I think I'll do a whole piece on this next year around the shifts, but yeah, definitely starting to see the influence of the next generation coming into the workplace and how that's maybe sometimes causing a little bit of friction with their managers. What's the one skill I'd like leaders to have in 2025? I mean, let's assume we all got feedback in 2024. I think in 2025, it would be comms and storytelling. This is what will take that change management to the next level, and really thinking about how we show up, the messages we're sending, repetition, engagement, and stepping out of the weeds and into strategy. Again, I know it sounds obvious, but I don't think we're all doing it that well. So focusing on your role as being the ambassador for change and creating the constraints for folks to problem solve within that, letting go a little bit of the answer, but really just reinforcing that inspiring message and vision. What was the most picked question card? So you may not know this, but we have developed a set of question cards that we've started using at our after hours dinners, as a way for people to get to know each other. And then we've started using them also in workshops. So you can see here, there's some nice question cards that are, safe for work, but get people talking about themselves in a way that might not naturally come up in status update meetings. So the question that was most picked in 2024 was, how has my hometown shaped me? And I thought that's a really interesting one, because you learn a lot about someone in how they describe growing up, their family. They might talk about their family, their school, little things. So I thought that was a really precious thing to share, and also encourage you to think about, how has your hometown shaped you? All right. And that is a wrap for this podcast in 2024. I'm really looking forward to inviting more guests into 2025 and also thinking of different ways that I can share the insights we get working at Overtime Leader across so many fantastic industries with phenomenal people doing really cool stuff. So always reach out, like, subscribe, comment. I want to hear from you. I want to make sure that, you're hearing what you want to hear. Other than that, have a fantastic holiday period and look forward to reconnecting with you in the new year.